Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and I just noticed a few minutes ago that Masha dropped her Hermit card in her Top Tarot Trumps series. So I thought, you're getting a two for today. I already released one of my videos, but I figured I'd release this one as well. So in my last video in this series, I discussed how certain things were important to me in a Justice card. And I have some important features for the Hermit card as well. It wasn't until the Justice card in the series of the Trump cards that I really began to have preferences in things that it contained. You know, I'm not so fussy about, I like certain features in certain decks, about the Fool, about the Magician, about the, Pope, the female Pope, Emperor, Empress, and the Pope. But up until the Justice card and the Lover's card, but up until the Justice card, I wasn't as fussy. But I am fussy also with the Hermit card. What I like to see in a Hermit card is an hourglass, because the Hermit is representing age. That's why he was created. He's representing age, wisdom, the passage of time. It's the number 9. And if you think of the number 9 in number 9 in the pip cards, you think of just getting to the threshold of starting over. That's what the 10 is for. So that's my orientation. I'm connecting the number 9 to the Hermit. Why do I want to see the hourglass? Well, the hourglass represents time. And so does the cane, an aged person. So does the beard. And so those are the things I really would like to see. So let's flip the camera and see what I have chosen. So you can see from the boxes, I have a Marco Benedetti, I have an Il Menichello, I have an Ian Comsty, and then I have another Marco Benedetti. The first is Charles VI, the second is Minchiati Fiorentine, Rare Triumphs, and Marco's personal Visconti deck. For my 5th place, I have this card. I actually really like it. So for all the cards that I'm showing, there isn't any that I dislike. I really like all of them. I like this one because it's a nod to Diogenes, who, after all, I believe, is who the French TDM decks believe that the Hermit was representing, which is why he ended up, I think, misunderstanding the hourglass with a lantern, because Diogenes was said to be traveling the world with his lantern, seeking out an honest man. Here we have a different type of portrayal of Diogenes. This was in Marco's Charles VI tarot deck, and he's in his dwelling, and the conqueror Alexander the Great, in his upstart way, being a young whippersnapper, shows up to the great man Diogenes and says, "Sir, if there's anything I could do for you, just let me know, And Diogenes says, "Yeah, you can move aside, you're blocking the sun." Now, according to the story, Alexander the Great got a kick out of that and was even more impressed by the elder than he had been before. But it just gives you a sense of it's a nod to the wisdom part of Diogenes. He was a wise old man, and he became who he was. So, and I do like that because the Italians did have representation of Diogenes. It probably was representing the sun card, because the sun is here. So this could have been, because of the story with "move aside, you're blocking my sun," it really could have been connected to the sun card, but it kind of works well for the Hermit card. So I could be mistaken. This could be entirely for the sun card, but I think it works well for the Hermit card. And without really knowing for sure which one it is, I'm just looking at it as a nod. And even if it was the sun card, perhaps by the time it migrated to France, this kind of got mumbo jumboed up and became the Hermit card became the Hermit card, right? Now here we have the Rare Triumphs by Ian Cumsty. I like this one a lot. It still gives us a nod to the Diogenes story, even though that it's not a lantern, but he made it like yellow. So I can see kind of like this being, this representing a missing link of the transition between a hourglass and a lantern. We see the cave of Diogenes. We see the elder, and he's walking. So, I mean, this perhaps came from Ian Cumsty's imagination, or he did indeed perhaps, fashion it after an early Italian deck. But I do like it because it's kind of a transition card, even though it's still an hourglass. And I like it especially because it's an hourglass. Here's just a nod to one of the early, Italian decks. Well, it's not that early. It's the Minchiati Fiorentine, 1850, so it's not that early. But it still holds on to Italian tradition. And we see the hourglass. We see an arrow showing the passage of time. We see an elder with his crutches. We see a stag with a rack of horns that probably took time to grow. So I kind of like the representation of touching all the bases of letting us understand that time is the passage of time. This one I like. This is from the Marco's personal Visconti deck. I like it because he's holding his hourglass. He's got all the ingredients that I kind of like. He's also got the hunchback, because in some Italian decks, he was known as the hunchback, so I kind of like that reference there too. And then my favorite card, I think, is this card, but also from the Charles VI deck. And this wasn't an original card to the Charles VI deck. This was more of a additional card, a substitute card. And as I mentioned, it could have been for the Sun just as equally as for the Hermit. But I like this because, and this is, again, you can kind of see where the idea of Diogenes came from, and it could have been a reference to Diogenes, who knows, the cave, he came down from his cave and he's got the hourglass and he's walking. But I can totally understand how the French, when they made their Hermit card, just transitioned him to Diogenes with an hourglass, with a lantern, just misunderstanding what it was, or understanding what it was, but deciding to change the motif. But these are the ones that I like the best because they are in keeping with tradition, which is what I tend to prefer in my tarot decks. Not always, but sometimes. Short and sweet. I hope this was fun for you. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.